This is what I call an A-frame snow shelter. It's my favorite snow shelter to build because it takes much less time than an igloo and I stay a lot drier than when I make a quinzee or a snow cave. It provides good protection from the elements and has plenty of headroom. I consider it a one-person shelter, but with a little modification, it can fit up to 2 people in a bind. I usually begin by digging a narrow pit, about 3 feet deep, that I can stand in. Then I remove any loose snow from the top of what will become a trench, about 4 or 5 feet long and a little more than shoulder width. Once I get down to good crusted snow, I start cutting blocks that are the width of the trench and about 6 to 10 inches thick. These blocks will be used then to make the A-frame roof. How thick I cut the blocks depends on how well the snow is crusted. The blocks have to be strong enough not to break in half when held horizontally by their ends. Snow depth here is nearly 3 feet, with about 2 feet crusty enough for cutting some good blocks. The bottom layer is just too soft for making blocks, so I shovel it out of the way. From each 2 feet of crusted snow depth, I'm able to cut 3 blocks. Sometimes, especially with those lower blocks, they get wedged in there and you can't lift them out without cutting an extra inch off the end of the block. I'm now cutting out the last blocks from the end of the trench. Once I've cut out all the blocks I need and I have finished the trench, I hollow out the end for a place to put my legs. Here's a view of the finished trench with the leg space hollowed out. Next, I make a back wall by stacking a couple of blocks on top of the snow at the end of the trench, and then I take another block, lean it to the midpoint of the trench, and mark its angle on the back wall. I cut the back wall on the marked angle and then lay the roof block against it, with about half to a third of the block's width hanging out over the trench side of the wall. Then I take another roof block, place it opposite the first one and flush with the back wall, and lean its top against the top of the first roof block. I cut the top of both blocks at a vertical angle so they sit flush against each other, and then I just continue the process with block after block. Here's the roof with the first 4 blocks in place. I continue adding blocks until the roof is complete. By staggering or offsetting these roof blocks in this way, there's always a good edge against which to lean the top of your next block. Otherwise, you end up trying to awkwardly balance 2 blocks at the same time while you position them on the edge of the trench and try to cut their tops flush with each other. The roof is finished. And the next task is to close in the front end of the snow trench. I do this first by stacking a couple of blocks to use as pillars, and then another block across the top is the archway. Fill in the remaining holes with whatever blocks you've got left, and then trim the hole big enough so that you can crawl in and out with relative ease. You don't want it too big or you get too much cold air flow in and out. So here's the finished product. I crawl inside to make sure the entrance is big enough and that I have enough leg room and head space. I can put my feet in the hollowed out end without touching the end wall, and I can sit up or even kneel up without hitting my head on the ceiling. I could make the sleeping space a little wider by undercutting the walls a foot or so on either side if necessary. It took me less than an hour from start to finish, and I've got a comfortable, cozy shelter protected from wind and cold.